and Chad went to a school called Old Donation because Pharrell's mother's a teacher. She's an educator. So there was like an after school type of program for the kids. That's where they met, Chad and Pharrell. So Pharrell's like, I know this guy named Chad. He's Filipino, man. He's got a keyboard and a microphone, man. We going over there. We're gonna record you. I'm gonna write some stuff for you. We're gonna make music. That's how that happened. When Teddy Riley comes to your city, you see a Lamborghini for the first time. You see a Ferrari for the first time. You seeing platinum jewelry, diamonds and money and cars, and you're like, well, yeah, you think it can happen. Now, Tammy Lucas, she was another instrumental piece in that who you had on the show because that was our hangout spot too. She kind of took us in like little brothers. So I think hanging out with her and her like letting us know what was going on behind the scenes. Now you gotta look at the structure of the album that went multi-platinum, which was Mark, Eric, Chauncey, and Teddy.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, they wanted to put Mark out of the group. And so that was the biggest mistake, in my opinion, that started the downhill spiral for them. He wanted me to be in the group.
To replace
after
Mark?
that. Yes. And I refused.
Whoa, why?
Yeah, because that's the thing about me, man. I'm not an opportunist, man. Like you asked me earlier, was I ever felt like I should be, because Pharrell and Chad became great producers, or Tim are friends of mine and different things. I'm not the type of person that I know my place.
Hey guys, want to welcome you to another edition of Halftime Chat, stroke New Jack Swing podcast. And I've got my guy Sheldon here. I do interview MikeEtheridge. He from Virginia Beach, and he was part of the Neptunes and part of the Teddy Riley stable. So it's going to be great talking to Mike and seeing how he is doing. Mike, it's definitely great to have you on the show. I've got my friend Sheldon, one of the co-hosts at New Jack Swing podcast.
Okay.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
Good.
Yes. Okay. One of our colleagues, Stevie, he just did some radio shows, so he's not able to make it today. But anyway, so as we always do when we start with Halftime Chat, we always like to find out where our guest is sort of born and raised.
Okay, yeah. So for me, obviously I was raised in Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay.
I'm from Virginia, born and raised here. My parents are from here. My dad grew up here. My mom grew up in Norfolk. So Virginia Beach is my hometown. I'm born and raised, and it's not a lot about Virginia Beach, I can't tell you.
I mean, for some those of us who, I mean, I only knew about Virginia Beach is when Teddy moved out there. But prior to, and then the whole future stuff. But prior to that, what was Virginia Beach like growing up for you?
That's the thing. Virginia Beach, prior to the Future Records movement or the music industry, coming here through Teddy or exposing this area to that, I'll say, it was just very, because you got to remember, this is a slave state. Wow. So like slavery was big here. Like even if you look at like my father and he had generations of slavery in his life where his grandfather and his father, and they would pass down the land that the slave owner would leave to the different slaves.
Wow.
So this area is really like my dad can tell me stories of him still having to go into the back door to work in Virginia Beach when he was a teen. So, it was like, it's different because even when I grew up, Virginia Beach predominantly white. I would say that as far as the culture, okay, because of racism and because of slavery and all those things. So when you get the Black people to come to Virginia Beach, it was different because most of the Black people migrated to Norfolk, okay? So it was more of a Black area in that sense. Norfolk is more of a Black area than Virginia Beach, where Virginia Beach is more, like I said, it was more predominantly white area. So my father was the first person in his family to go to college. So he attended Norfolk State University, got his bachelor's in accounting, went to the military, came out, and he was an accountant for the government in the Department of Defense. So he I guess you would say beat the odds in the sense that we lived in a white neighborhood. He was making, $50,000, $60,000 back then, which was a lot of money,
Wow.
at that time. So we had a different lifestyle than say my aunts or people that I would see when my mom grew up in Norfolk. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
I knew early there was a difference between Virginia Beach and Norfolk. So Virginia Beach was definitely a melting pot of culture because you had the military too, as well. So when we started going to school, you're talking about going to school with, Filipino kids, white kids, black kids, all types of different races. So it was a different cultural experience that we had in Virginia Beach. And I think that helped to shape, beyond just the fact that music industry came here, the way we thought about music and the way we were exposed to it, because we had different things that we were exposed to in Virginia Beach versus other cities that may not have had that type of exposure in our area.
Then, what was your interest in music as a kid, growing up?
Now, for me, even in the group when I was, a part of the Neptunes and everything, I was kind of like the church guy, the guy that had the church piece, the element of the church, that vocal soul, you know what I mean? That church thing, because again, when I was 6 months old, I actually was adopted by my parents. But from that point, from that point on, I was exposed to church. So at a young age, but I didn't know I had a gift of singing. Obviously, they didn't know that, but or music, you know what I mean. So, but God knew that, so He placed me in the right environment to be nurtured and cultured, and so I started out in church, and we had a musician by the name of Andrew Williams, who was like my first, I guess you could say, teacher, music teacher, but it was church. So I started out in the choir, young, and I'm singing. I remember I would be singing at 6 years old. I was up on the stage singing like the old hymns and stuff, and everybody standing up and the church clapping their hands. So they're like, wait a minute, this kid's different. So it was a song called Said I Wasn't Gonna Tell Nobody, but I couldn't keep it to myself, or something like that. So one Sunday I'm singing that in Sunday school and everybody's on their feet. And I think they kind of realized at that point, this guy's different. But that was my musical exposure, was church. You dealing with, and in Virginia, church was big back then. Back then it was, church was community. Everything revolved around the church. Whereas now it's a little different. But back then, if you were a part of a local church somewhere in our community, so that was the music part of it. And I fell in love with gospel music and just the sound of it, the organ, the drums, the feeling and all of that. So that was my musical. And then see, I had my aunts too, who because we didn't play much music outside of Christian music in the home, but I got exposed to like Aretha Franklin, CL Franklin, Sam Cooke. These were gospel artists at first, so I'm hearing them come through that. And I'm absorbing all of that. Then my aunts are playing like Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson. When I go over there, they got all the records. So I'm going to go through the whole Motown collection. So I'm getting exposed to Marvin Gaye, and then they had a real vast palette for music. So Barbra Streisand and Barry Manilow and Hall and Oates. I'm young though. I'm around 7 or 8 years old, but these are the things I'm exposed to. So I was cultured musically, diversely, but mainly with gospel music. Yeah.
I mean,
and hip hop and all of it, man. But gospel was the driving force.
I mean, and then in those days now, what was it for you when you were thinking about music though? Were you thinking that you could take it further, or was it just like, just
I believe it was a dream it was a dream, because even before I met Pharrell and the Neptunes, before we became a group, before any of that, before we knew Teddy and all that, I'm in my room, I would write down the lyrics to all of the songs, like all of the songs. I remember the song Secret Lovers.
Oh yes,
R&B record. Yeah, so I wrote down all the lyrics and I would sing them back to my mom. She's like, "Oh, this is so nice." And then my uncles, they would, bring like hip hop stuff for like Rapping Duke, the ha, Lottie Dottie, We Like to Party, just Biz Markie, the whole Juice Crew. So I would write down everything, whether it was Guy, but I didn't know who they were. I was just a young kid in my room. just loving music, man. So I would write down all the lyrics and then rehearse those records and learn them. Like, it's funny because Tony from High Five was one of my favorite groups. With I Like the Way and the Kissing Game and all that. And then I used to meditate on that record, bro. Like, and it's so funny because I end up meeting him and meeting Teddy and all of that, and it just was like an alignment. God had a plan, man, and it was. We didn't know he was gonna come to Virginia, but obviously each of us, myself, Pharrell, Chad, all of us were being cultured somehow musically, preparing us for whatever we would experience once we did get that opportunity.
Okay, I mean, prior to Teddy coming down, so how did you meet Pharrell and Chad before Teddy came down?
Oh yeah, man. Listen, we grew up together. So Pharrell actually lived not too far from me. So we have our neighborhood was called Windsor Woods. So that's where Pharrell and I grew up. Again, he was in the neighborhood as well, in the neighborhood I lived in, but a little bit further down. So when we went to middle school, this is where we started to go to school together. But then when we went to high school, which was Princess Anne, that's when I actually met him. And when I met him in band because we both were in marching band. So Princess Anne was our high school for our area. When we went to high school, one summer, you go to band camp, drum camp. It's called drumline camp. So you're there all summer just learning your craft. I was playing the snare drum. He was playing top bass. And we developed a relationship because, number one, we were only two Black guys on the whole drum line. So, it wasn't like, just playing by ear. You had to learn how to read music and everything with this particular program. So me and him developed a bond in that band class. And then once he realized I could sing, it was like, oh, Mike, you can sing, And then he's like, already starting to kind of dig into himself as a writer, which I don't even think he knew he was, but he was just an artist at that point. Like, he knew he had something musically that was different and amazing. So once that happened, we developed that friendship in the band. And then it went from there where he wanted to start a group. Like, man, let's start a group. And, we're not really thinking so much about Teddy at this point. But then that kind of happens at the same time as we're developing. We've started going to Chaz, making music and everything already, like just sitting around. They don't know what they're doing. They just know he got a keyboard and a microphone. Me, Pharrell, and Chad.
Oh, how did you meet Chad then? Was he in the band?
Chad, and see, now Pharrell and Chad went to a school called Old Donation because Pharrell's mother's a teacher. She's an educator. So there was like an after school type of program for the kids. That's where they met, Chad and Pharrell. So Pharrell's like, I know this guy named Chad. He's Filipino, man. He's got a keyboard and a microphone, man. We going over there. We're gonna record you. I'm gonna write some stuff for you. We're gonna make music. That's how that happened. So they knew each other. But me and Pharrell knew each other through actually being in the same band. But Chad and Pharrell knew each other from Old Donation, which was a program that brought students from the area together. We went to his house, and that's where we started building the Neptunes.
Okay. I mean, how did the name come about?
The name comes from my area. So Neptune is the theme of the oceanfront. So the Neptunes wasn't like, something he just said, oh, let's call it the Neptunes. That's what Virginia Beach represented and still does. If you go down there right now, there's a Neptune coming out of the water, like a guy holding a pitchfork.
Okay.
I don't know what to describe it as, but it's like mythology, Greek mythology.
Yes.
It's part of Virginia Beach culture.
Ah, okay.
Water. So Neptunes is where that. So it wasn't the planet Neptune. Okay.
Yeah.
So this ideal of water, because we even had a song called "Wet, Wet, Wet," where we had water guns on stage and everything. Okay. You know what I mean? So that was the thing. Everything was about water. So that's where the Neptune. Now Chad kind of like was into the space planetarium type vibe. So Chad. The reason it became more about planets is because one day we came to Chad's house to rehearse or just practice, hang out like we do. And when we went in the room was dark. And Chad said, look at this. He turns the lights out. the room was lit, but he says, "Look, guys, I'm gonna show you something." He turns the lights out, and he has done his whole room with space theme. So you have all of these different stickers and glowing things. The room looked like we were out of space.
Wow.
So that's where the whole you start getting more into the planet thing of what it meant later. But Neptune has always represented the Neptunes. The name has always been
Okay.
represented with Virginia Beach and the beach culture.
Okay. And so at this time when the three of you are meeting up, were you thinking that you could take this was going to go anywhere? I mean, who was out at that time? Like which artists and songs and singers were out that you think that you could model yourselves after?
That was the thing that made us different, I think, and always made them different, even as they continued in the production realm, is that no one were like us. And that's what Teddy was like, man, you guys are so different. You got this, Pharrell's this eclectic, eccentric kind of artsy guy. You got this Filipino genius musically. Pharrell's a great writer and musician in his own right. You got Mike, the singer, same thing, musically inclined and gifted, and with this soul thing. You guys are like a smorgasbord of talent and what's going on here. So I think even he struggled with what to do with us. And that's why, it kind of like ended up with me doing more of the R&B and continuing on with them and them doing the production thing. Now, as far as us thinking that it could go somewhere, come on, you're dreaming. When Teddy Riley comes to your city, you see a Lamborghini for the first time. You see a Ferrari for the first time. You seeing platinum jewelry, diamonds and money and cars, and you're like, well, yeah, you think it can happen. Now, Tammy Lucas, she was another instrumental piece in that who you had on the show because that was our hangout spot too. She kind of took us in like little brothers. So I think hanging out with her and her like letting us know what was going on behind the scenes. Now you got to remember, I'm younger than Pharrell. So Pharrell's like 4 or 5 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
So he always, he was more mature in the sense that of understanding like the opportunity than I was. Because I'm young. I'm 14, 15.
Okay.
So I'm like all over the place. Like he's thinking, a little bit ahead. And two, I think he had a different vision because he was into fashion and all of these different things
Back
that
then,
people don't. It wasn't like that came later. He was always thinking that way. So he always saw something else, but he was really the driving force, to give him credit in that, as far as like making us go to the studio, because like we would leave the high school to go to the studio and it was a big risk because they had security. And they had this really trained, his name's Seafood. We became great friends.
I've heard of Seafood, yeah.
He
Teddy's
became like my
bodyguard.
brother. Yeah, he became like my big brother after, we met them, and he became like a teacher to me and everything. But it was like, man, we were afraid of this guy. You know what I'm saying? And he like, look, get out of here. Don't come back. That was the kind of things we dealt with. Trying to go to the studio. They had a policeman there. Pharrell didn't care. I'll give him that. He would be, come on, man. Come on, Mike. We going, Mike. I'm like, oh my God, again today. And every day we go until finally one day they got tired of us coming, I think. And was like, and then we knew Omar. So they knew of us, but once we got in there and Pharrell, did his thing, I did my thing, it was over from there. And see, he was a little older than me, so he could hang out there more. So that's how he ended up writing Rump Shaker, and really showing his talent there. And I think that's where he also developed that vision of, hey, I could do this myself. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. So, I mean, just thinking about going back, so how were you guys going to be set up, as a group? Was it you singing and then was Chad on the drums and Pharrell playing the guitar? I mean, what was it going to be like if you were on stage?
So what we did, he rapped.
Okay.
He rapped, just like he did in his career. Sung a little bit, rapped a little bit. I rapped too. That was the thing, even though I never did that with the Teddy world because it was R&B driven. But we all were hip hop, inclined, as well as the singing and the writing. Like I think we all just had this multifaceted gift to be able to do more than one thing. Well, so he but the first show we did, the talent show we did, yeah, I sung a song called Look in the Water, which is actually on the Master Plan collection that I'm going to put out. Blackstreet had redone it, but the original I did, which is insane, which is Teddy. Pharrell wrote that when we were in high school. Record's still crazy though, but that's what it was. We did like this hip hop thing. We had a joint called the Wet Wet Wet. It was kind of like a rap. And then I came with the Look in the Water ballad and killed it. That was the first talent show we did together
Okay,
as a
so
group.
can you, because we've heard about the talent show from different people. So can you tell us about the talent show that you guys got discovered by?
Well, there were two talent shows. There was one that we did for the high school. The high school had a talent show, which we killed, okay? Which that had Teddy and them weren't in the picture yet. When Teddy and them came into town, once we impressed Teddy by getting into the studio to perform for him, we got signed, bro. That's what people don't realize. We got signed under the name. I actually have a program. It should be here in the mail soon of the actual, it's online on my Facebook page, but of the actual talent show for Teddy Riley. And if you look on it, it'll say the Building Children as a future record artist. That's us.
Okay.
So the Teddy Riley talent show was not us getting discovered. That's what we gotta, I don't know, that might be what people think. It's not. We got discovered by banging on the studio door.
Oh.
And going in one day, and we were in the live room, and Teddy said, "Do your thing right here, right now." And that's what we did live. I sang. Pharrell was like doing beatboxing and everything, man. You know what I'm saying? So that's how he was like, these kids are amazing. Right then and there. And then we became a part of Future Records. He actually signed us to Markel Riley's imprint, his little brother, called Funky Mama. There you go. See, he know a little something. And I'll never forget, because the lawyer, we had to hire a lawyer from Norfolk, Virginia, who was his first. Well, he was the only person who even knew anything about entertainment law in Virginia. And that was very little, too, by the way. And he came to my parents' house. The meeting was at my parents' house because my parents had to sign for me, because I wasn't my first deal. I couldn't sign for myself. So they came and we had the lawyer. That deal got done too, man. We had a deal up under Markel Riley, which was under the Building Children. And yeah, we got we got like $1,000 a piece. No, excuse me. Like $2,500 a piece in high school. So we coming in styling. I'm like, oh, look, school? What you mean? Forget about school. And then I had got as I got older, I got like a little apartment. They gave me an apartment. I left home like 17. No, maybe, yeah, right when I was in high school. So it was a major experience, man. It was a major experience for kids, you know what I mean? Yeah. But that's how we got discovered.
So because the rumor was always the fact that you guys were at the talent show and Teddy was a judge. You guys performed, you won at the talent show, and that's how he met you guys. So
by the time we got to that talent show, we were already established the relationship with him.
So was a talent show then a front, just like, oh, that to really get you out? What was the point of having you guys at the talent show if you already signed?
At talent, we were just on there as special guests. We didn't even perform, I don't think, at that talent show. We didn't. We just hung out. We performed at the talent show Princess Anne High School had.
Oh, did they see you? Okay, did Teddy see you at that? Okay. Or did Tammy see you?
We just had a name of the kids. Go ahead.
Oh, did Tammy see you? So, okay, so...
what, at the... Tammy was always like there. We developed that relationship with Tammy from the studio. Yes. So Tammy knew about us. Yeah, Tammy knew about us. But like I said, that already had happened. Teddy had already seen us and had already been impressed.
Okay.
It was already done at that point. You know what I'm saying? So the talent show was just us hanging out and being recognized as Future Records artists.
So what was the plan for you guys then? What was his plan for you guys then when he signed you?
When he signed us, I think it was just, man, he had Funky Mama, which was Markel's piece. You know, Ted was busy with Blackstreet. So obviously he thinking this is the future. These are the next generation.
Oh, what year was this? So was this around 92, 93? Or 91?
91. This had to be around 91, 92. Matter of fact, I could tell you because the talent show 93.
Okay.
93.
93. So he's just finished the Bobby album. He's done a Bobby album. He's put out the Rex and Effects album, and
Right.
working on Blackstreet debut album.
Right. Rex and Effect is coming because think of Rump Shaker again. That was that lead single that Pharrell wrote. So this is all during that time frame when everybody's hanging out at the studio and all that's kind of happening. Because Pharrell wrote the Teddy's rap to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the hook to the whole record.
I mean, at that point in time, I mean, okay, if we go back a little bit, how was it? Teddy came around, was it 91 or 92 to Virginia Beach?
Yeah, the talent show was in 93. It would have been 92. He's probably been there.
He came in like 91 after the whole.
Go ahead, Sheldon.
Yeah, it's about like 91 because once he got the MCA hookup, and then he went down there. He was down there as early as 91, and the other guys were down there with him for a minute, Aaron and Damien.
Yeah, that's true. That's a fact.
They went. It wasn't. He stayed down there, but yeah, about 90. Because in 91, that's when they actually shot. That's when I checked the video around.
Well, yeah, I mean, because originally Blackstreet's original Baby Be Mine video shoot was here as well. The original, it was in Norfolk, Virginia that they shot that Baby Be Mine video for the Force soundtrack.
Yeah.
So that was really the first video. But see, in the middle of all of this, process, that's when Interscope comes into play in Jimmy Iovine too, within that 2-year period. And that's when he really gets the money, the big checks and the big situation with Blackstreet and the whole 9 yards in order to build that conglomeracy of features and all that. So,
did it make local news when that Teddy Riley had moved into town, or was it? Did everyone know about who he was and in fact he's coming into town? I mean,
it was a big deal. He had a great relationship with the community, the police department, the officials, and all that, man, because nobody ever seen anything like that here before, ever. So it was like larger than a black man with some money like that, driving these cars. They thought he was a drug dealer. You know what I mean? Because it just could not be possible for a black man to be living like this. So yeah, it definitely impacted, but it gave the area a sense of hope, music, for something to do. We saw something that we never saw before. That's when, so you got to remember Timbaland, Missy, Timbaland, and I also, he's a part of that too, because we all grew up together. So he
you knew Timbaland?
Yeah, I used to spend the night over Timbaland's house. And Timbaland and I, because Pharrell and Timbaland were in a group prior to that. Pharrell was already doing music and stuff. Like I said, he's older than me. So him, Timbaland, and another guy, Magoo, that passed away, they were in a group.
Wow.
Yeah, called Surrounded by Idiots. So it's actually a record of Pharrell rapping on there with Magoo. If you go to my page, you'll see it. In my reel, I think I did a reel of it, it's everywhere. Timbaland actually posted it too. But yeah, Tim, his mother and my mother were cool. So I would stay over there sometime.
Wow.
And Tim, he made beats on an Elise drum machine. And they always sounded just like how they still sound now. That's the crazy part. Like Tim been making beats like that since we were kids. But nobody just understood what it was. It wasn't until that I really got it and said, wow, you have your own style.
Wow.
Yeah, when I look at that era around that time, it was almost like you can compare Virginia Beach to like Minneapolis, because Minneapolis was remote, away from the music business, and Minneapolis was able to create their own style apart from whatever was going on in the industry. And then you saw that obviously on the Virginia side of the house with Pharrell and Timbaland and them doing what they're doing. And like what Mike was saying is that with Teddy coming down to Virginia Beach in '91, that was major, especially for a black man, because prior to that, like he said, they would have in the summer, they would have a Greek fest, they would have all those festivals coming down in the summer, and it was a lot of people from Virginia Beach didn't like it.
Nope.
It was a real big deal. They didn't like it. And this was we talking about like 2 years, 2, 3, whatever, before Teddy's going down. And like he said, it was more, you got Alpo and Rich Porter, guys like that. They take the bus trips and all that. It was just more like a destination, a vacation destination.
Oh. I mean,
up north, Teddy's coming in. It's a major big deal in '91.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, when you think about it, when they do come on in, do you then think you guys are going to be able to get signed, or do you think, oh, this is the music industry is here?
It started becoming more of a reality, yeah. And to be honest, because what happened was, it was more so like Teddy's doing the R&B, we're a group. So they start, Pharrell and Chad start looking more on the production side, right? Now, at this time, nobody signed. You got to realize that. So I'm not even signed, because now it's clear once this Funky Mama situation's over, nobody really kind of wants to be in that situation.
Oh, well, what do you mean?
Well, like I said, Pharrell, starts to see more of a production side of this.
Oh, instead of a group.
Right. And I mean, I won't say instead of a group, because he still had NERD, but it was like, when you come to this point of, okay, Ted says, look, right now we can get you on, offer you an R&B deal and get another check. So when that starts to happen, it's like, okay, and now you got to remember, Chad and Pharrell have already started working with Kenny Ortiz in New York too. Kenny Ortiz was who Tammy introduced Chad and Pharrell to, who worked at RCA. Okay.
Is this Kenny Ortiz, SWV?
Correct.
So Tammy introduced the Neptunes to him?
Correct. Now, obviously, Pharrell's a great writer, so he's got to follow that. So what happens when they link up with that? Because I remember we flew out to Atlanta and met with Joe Thomas. You know Joe Thomas, right?
Yeah, Joe, yeah.
Yeah. They wrote a record for him when we were in our teens, bro. I was put it this way. I was 16. I couldn't even get into Magic City, the strip club. Joe loved them strippers. But we were out there at the studio with him, but they got me in and everything. So that was my first experience with that. But what I'm saying is, they were already moving in the production direction. Okay? So it just made sense. But he was still keeping the group together and still, keeping, because Shay, the other person who was in NERD, he was with us too, even though he's not like out front, he was still a part of it. So there was still that existence of that. But then once they started really getting those opportunities, and then once Teddy, what I started doing was, I said, well, I'm gonna start making my own little demos and stuff too, on an R&B tip. So that's how that came about. So I started doing that. And I came back after, I said, well, look, I can go on and do this. You guys are already doing your thing. So that's how, it was an amicable thing, whereas it was something on the table with Teddy when he heard what Chad and I were doing R&B wise. Because we all had to figure it out. Like you said, how do we take all of what we have, but still each of us be able to do what we need to do? So that's how that happened.
Okay, so I guess because the thoughts were, the Neptunes decided to leave Teddy, and you said, "Now I'm going to stay and play with and work with Teddy." But I guess you're trying to show that, look, the Neptune, both Chad and Pharrell were producers, and you weren't exactly part of the production team. So it wasn't as if you said, "No, guys, you go. I'm gonna stay here."
It was never I'm gonna stay here. We don't like. I mean, y'all deciding to leave. I'm gonna stay type of deal. It was more of a I'm gonna get in where I fit in. You know, I don't want to, and that's why it's always been with me. I want to see you win it, whatever you do. And it was destined for Chad and Pharrell to do what they did production wise as the Neptunes. That was destiny for them. You know what I'm saying? So, and Chad, put it this way: the first deal that was secured was really my deal with Teddy. That's what paid for the equipment for everything else that would come. You know what I'm saying? Nobody had no money. It was when we gave Chad $50,000 to produce my album from Interscope. So that's how Chad was able to establish himself. So it was never, that really was the catalyst to make everything happen for the Neptunes as a production team.
Okay, so they produced? Was it just Chad or Chad and Pharrell?
It was just Chad though.
Oh.
And the reason it was just Chad was because Chad is more of the musician of the two when it comes to keys. Pharrell has his own sound. We know that. You know what I'm saying? So, the album was going to be more R&B in style. So that's why it made more sense for Chad to do the production.
Oh, okay.
To lead the production.
And did Pharrell get involved at all then? Or was it just... No.
No. He wasn't involved in all at that point. It was all Chad. I told you that check for $50,000 said Chad Hugo. Chad had a Mercedes Benz before anybody. Chad was the first one with a car.
But that seems strange if their production a duo, and then when their first sort of big gig comes around, Pharrell doesn't get invited in, and Chad gets it all done.
I wouldn't say he doesn't get invited in. He didn't want to be. He didn't want to be a part of the R&B limitations on that.
Oh.
And he had a vision of what he thought music sounded like for him. You know what I mean? So that's what that was. It wasn't like no hate or nothing. It was just, that's what he wanted to do.
But then for you, then how did you feel the fact that these were your, he was the guy who brought you into this stuff, and now you've got your first deal to do your album, and he's like, "Nah, I don't want part of that. I'll let Chad just do it on his own."
Well, I didn't feel no type of way because I felt like he respected me as a writer too. And I also felt like, Teddy Riley, I learned so much from him. It was meant for me to sit up under him too for those years and learn what I needed to learn to do what I needed to do going forward. You know what I'm saying? So I never thought anything bad about it. And I had a record from him that he wrote up there, Look in the Water, but it was never any animosity or anything like that.
Yeah. So the
from me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I had a child at the time, so I had to get my money too. Do what I had to do for me. You know what I mean? In my situation.
So how many years in all did you spend with Teddy?
Ooh, man. 16, 17, 19, 21, 2, 3. 10.
10 years.
Yeah. 16 to 20. 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Yeah. At least, yeah. 16 to 26.
So you're talking about from like 1991 to like what, 2005, 2006? I mean, I'm sorry. 1991 to 2001?
No, 93 to...
Yes, sir. Because the album didn't come out. I didn't get the Capitol deal till 2000.
Wow. Okay.
So you're talking about all of this time, with him, sitting up under him, learning, and getting paid, brother. Not missing one check. And we were able to get more deals and opportunities. So, even though my record never came, I've called myself the best never came out album story.
But tell me this. Tell me this. When you look at that arrangement, because you were were you on staff as a writer? Were you on retainer? Was it work for hire? Describe that arrangement when you got down in terms of, because obviously you're there.
The arrangement was more just straight deals. The Interscope situation was I was signed, and as long as they stayed there, Jimmy kept taking care of the artists. You understand? So if you were signed to that Interscope situation umbrella, because you gotta think, Blackstreet selling 7-10 million records. So the label good. You know, the other artists, they're gonna make sure that it works. So it wasn't no retainer. It was just, now as far as getting paid every week, yeah. It was just $1,000 a week or whatever it was, you're getting paid.
Okay. So were you with LOR?
What do you mean?
Were you signed to LOR? Were you signed to
Like for
Pharrell? I was signed to Little Man. It was called Little Man Records, which was a subsidiary of Interscope Records, just like Aftermath was.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but what are you doing while waiting to do your album then in that time frame?
Oh man, well, see, the first portion of it was the creation with Chad. A lot of just figuring it out. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Figuring it out musically. Then, you know, just if you kind of like take out all of the, without getting too detailed, but throughout those years and those ups and downs, then eventually you get into him losing the deal with Interscope, right? So now all of those projects are just in limbo that didn't come out. So once the deal is lost with Interscope between Teddy and Jimmy Iovine, those albums are up for grabs, in a sense.
So at that time you had Not a Butter.
Right.
Marcus Miller, was it Marcus Miller?
Yeah. Well, David Miller.
David Miller. Okay.
David Miller, Connecticut, young guy.
Yeah. David Miller.
You had Black Girl.
Yeah. Was it Chance? You had Chance. You had Not a Butter. You had a lot of them guys. What was it?
Well, I don't know how many of them had albums done.
Oh, okay. Black Girl was supposed to be under Teddy.
Yeah, exactly. And you had 8th Avenue.
Oh, 8th Avenue, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But see, again, very few of these, I don't know how many of them had albums done. So by me having an album done, there was the guy that took over, a manager named Jack Pontoriero, who's an industry guy, okay? He came in and said, hey, Capitol wants to buy MikeEtheridge's project. So now we come in and negotiate that deal, and that's how it ended up on Capitol with another whole budget. They paid another $400,000 to us for that project.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I got to do the album, or what do they want you to do?
Album. Here you go. But we're gonna make some changes to it. But Mike signed us now, so I go out to LA now. I'm working with Capitol with the same project that I did with Teddy and Chad.
Okay, so it was just do they just need to touch up the music, or what do they want you to do?
Exactly. And I'm gonna tell you the interesting story about that. Master Plan, the song Master Plan, even after we did that, because me and Pharrell, we never, like, our relationship didn't dissolve. So there's a Neptune remix by Pharrell to that record that never came out, because even when I got signed to Capitol, I had the relationship, so I had them do a remix to it. Like, now I can work with y'all too. But what y'all doing? But Capitol couldn't understand it, so it never came out. It was crazy too.
Oh, they didn't think it was up to it?
Nope, they didn't think it would work because they didn't know. They were a bunch of white executives and old black radio people who just didn't get it.
But had they not come out with anything by that time, the Neptunes? Had they not had a hit?
They only had, I'm gonna tell you what they had. They had the Noriega record, was all they had.
Super Thug, yeah.
They had the
Okay.
what record. So they didn't get it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I guess
that's around 98. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah. So you come out on Capitol with Master Plan. What was your thoughts about how they promoted the single, the whole project?
everything dissolved at that point. It was a disaster just because, again, it goes back to at this point, I'm older. You know what I'm saying? I know what I want to do musically is different than just what I was doing with Teddy. So that's where the problem started coming in with that. You know what I
Uh,
mean? It wasn't so much the promotion. It was just I knew like, look, music is changing. R&B is different now. It's not the same as when I came up.
mm,
Let us adjust. And I want to talk about some other different topics and subjects. And, I started exploring that with Nubian Queen and different records on that album. And they were cool with that, but it was just Roy Lott, man. He just didn't get black music. None of the black artists survived that chapter with Capitol.
wow.
Yeah. So it was more so just that. And then too, I said, look, man, I want to take it into more inspirational zone with the music because I saw what was working and what people would gravitate. I saw how music was changing. You had a lot of different even the soul era of music, Soul Child and all that started to bubble at that
Yeah,
point.
it's okay. Okay. So the neo soul.
Yeah, so everything was different and they just didn't want to catch up. So at that point, I was like, I just can't do it. I'd rather just do my own thing.
Okay. So was the album yet out? I mean,
No,
with
the album was not yet out.
you only had the Master Plan out.
Nope. Only like snippets. That album was never officially released until it will be released now in January of this year on my label.
So all that time, all those years, nothing came out.
Nope. Only Master Plan the single. No Look in the Water, no nothing. Yeah, it's crazy because it's just nothing. So I was able to get all of it reverted back to me after a certain amount of time anyway, contractually, a lot of it. So, but it was just like now I said, well, when I looked at the project, man, and so many people all over the world like hitting me, London, Germany, all these different countries are still in love because it came out with like what you call that? A pre-release. So just off of that alone, they've been going crazy for years still, bro. And we're talking 20, how many ever years later? So it's like, I said, let me collect this and put it out. I'll let them hear some stuff that people have never heard before. Records like that me and Chad did that I think, and two, it just helps with my indie projects that I'm doing to show people who I am. Because a lot of people like still, even now, as I put those things out with Master Plan, they're like, that's the guy from that. I still love that song.
Mm.
So it's just crazy, man. But no, nothing ever came out from that project, man. It's amazing to think that that album was never released.
What's it like then as an artist when you've worked hard, and it's been all these years? I mean, the first hurdle with Interscope falls through, and now you've got a second chance with Capitol, and just when it's supposed to come out, it falls apart. What's that like going through that?
It's, I mean, it's hard, but at the same time, I think for me because I started out at 16, so young, and I had gotten so used to the way the industry moved. It's like once you get used to how the industry works, it doesn't affect you the same way. And as an
Oh, what
artist,
do you mean? What do you mean?
it doesn't disappoint you as much.
Wow.
Like when certain things happen because you understand that it's a machine. As things were very different in that time frame for the music industry when that happened for me with Capitol and all of that, because it's not like it is now where you can just put your music out and everything is digital. You still were buying CDs.
Mm.
So now, the machine had so much control back then. And, they had the ability to start or stop an artist. So it was either you go with the machine or you're not going to do anything. So for me, it was like I stood on my convictions. I believed in what I had enough to where, and I will never forget because I was in a limousine when I had the epiphany in LA. Like, man, I would rather not do it if I can't do it my way.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? Why would you want to be a fraud and a phony and not be able to be you? I'd rather walk away from that. And here I am 20 years later, and God honored that because my thing was I wanted to bring my faith into my music.
Okay.
And Capitol didn't want that at all. Like they were like, you do that, we don't want to do. So my thing was, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And I just stood on that, man. And I'm still standing on it. And it's still, look, I'm happy that I did it because guess what? Now I'm able to still put this record out the way that I want to. And actually, and use it as a platform for the rest of what I've been doing and what I am doing, like records like Breakthrough and all the other stuff that I'm doing.
At that point in time, when you're signed to a label, it feels as if it's like a unique type of job. You know, most people, most of us could lose our job and go find another job. As a recording artist, if you get dropped and not released, does that not feel as if I've worked so hard to get here? What's next?
Well, like I said, man, I guess it just depends on what you want out of life. You know what I'm saying? Because the music industry, man, listen, I know so many people that, I mean, I don't know it's very few that have a great story. But again, can you make the money out of it? You know what I'm saying? Listen, the way I am right now in the music industry and what I can look back and say, man, some people may never even experience that or get the opportunity to, man. The most they may get now is just some Instagram fame.
So when you're going through that whole process, because you're going from different label situations in between, trying to put your product out, they're not connecting with you, and then you're moving on and you're waiting for the next project to come around. On the creative side, obviously, you never stop making music. So how were you able to sustain yourself in between those windows for the next thing to come around the corner?
You mean what, financially?
Just as far as just in terms of just making a living, because people sometimes have a misconception that once you're in the industry and the money's always going to be there and you're able to kind of maintain. And remember, you've been doing this since you were 16.
Yeah.
So that's your life. So unlike somebody else who's 16 years old, you're talking about now to step outside that recording on industry matrix and try to go into the I won't say the real world, but the world. So how are you able to kind of like stay afloat in those periods?
Well, to be honest, you do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, I always been like around street people. You know what I'm saying? Like just period. Anyway, that's what kind of like who I was as far as who I gravitated towards. So when I'm gonna be honest, when I came home from New York, because I was in New York for a long time. When I came home, I immediately got in the streets. Immediately. Like I immediately got, and I already knew all the people, my friends, that's what they did. So it wasn't nothing for me to just, and I already had known it because I never was in it deep. I was in it before, but I wasn't in it as deep because I had the music. So I was the person that was like, like, don't go too far because he's the, I was the guy who had this industry thing. But then when I came home, that was what I had. So that's how I survived for a minute, was just straight in the streets, bro. So that's how, you know what I mean? Until I had an experience there, and then everything shifted. And I avoided doing jail time, though. I didn't end up having to do none. I did everything on house arrest for like just 1 year, though. But it was just such a life-changing experience. That's when I said, man, and that's when the music even became more important because the inspiration behind it now had to have a message. Because now I understood that I needed to teach, especially the next generation. That's why it's called G Next Life. And a lot of people don't know that about me, but they're gonna know because the new music is gonna tell the rest of the story of Mike E. Beyond the like you said, the industry and the pretty stuff and just the Neptunes and all that. But what happened after that? The way I could still stand here now. And then, I still ended up having a record on the Hidden Figures soundtrack with Pharrell after that.
Oh,
I ended up getting.
Around this time,
Go ahead.
around this time, when you're talking about like Capitol is not responding to you wanting to pivot into inspirational music, but somewhere like around this time, or maybe a little bit after, David Hollister, who obviously is down with Blackstreet during the time, you around or whatever, he comes out with a gospel album called The Book of David.
Uh-huh.
But when you seeing that, you seeing an R&B colleague, fellow singer, able to go ahead and put out inspirational music like that, and you're going through your situation, does it reinforce your your resolve to say, hey, you know what, this could happen?
I don't know, in the sense that I've always had a vision for something different when it came to the inspirational music, though. That it still wouldn't look like that. You know what I'm saying? So it was like I ran into that issue too, even when I was doing inspirational, because that's going to be edgy and different. It's not going to conform to like where you would be able to say he's a gospel artist off the rip. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So I think that was the challenge there for me. So I had to realize, and that's why it couldn't be a bigger blessing for music's, the way that music is consumed to have changed. Because now the labels don't dictate what is good or what people want to hear. You have different audiences and different niches that you have your own following now that you can build off of. You know what I mean? And feed them what. So I've always had a vision, even if, like I said, with Breakthrough, Faith, different records that I started doing later, they've always been edgier to where even a gospel label might be like, that ain't traditional gospel at that time. Now they're more open, you know what I'm saying? But back then, they wouldn't have wanted to, you know what I'm saying, necessarily jump out there on that, what I was doing. So I never felt like looking at him was telling me, because I've always been a gospel music fan, and I've always been admired gospel artists. You know what I mean? But for me, it was just my vision of what it looks like, and the people I want to reach are different.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at that market, let's just say, obviously, the gospel inspirational music capital, obviously, we're talking about Tennessee. They still have the traditional gospel lane, and they have different lanes that are there. So when you look in terms of someone from a creative side, did you ever consider leaving Virginia Beach after you was in New York for a while to go to a different place to kind of start over creatively? Or did you want to stay grounded in Virginia Beach?
Well, it wasn't, I don't think, because again, like you said, real life takes precedence. So at some point, it was about survival. You know what I mean? And then I had family, kids, you get older. So it's about, how do I build something around the life that I'll have now? Because I have other people dependent on me. So it couldn't be all just about following the dream the music at that point. That has to be a part of, integrated into what you do as a person. So that's why I said, you know what? And like I said, that's why the best thing to do was start your own company, your own thing that you could just develop at your own pace and make it and allow it to develop and become what you want it to be. No matter where you are, because you could be planted in, it don't matter what state you planted in for that. You know what I'm saying? You just got to work that thing until it's your time. You got to put the time and the effort in, and you got to have good quality music too, though. And that's what I think a lot of people, may not have that I bring to the table as far as experience of being around great quality producers and icons who've, worked with Michael Jackson and created some of the greatest music ever, like Teddy, to be able to sit with him for so long. Man, listen, when I go on and I write now, you're going to hear something different than you would hear from a person who doesn't have that experience.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So you being a creative person, how are you able to do the left brain, right brain thing where you got the music part of it? then there's the administrative part, there's the business. What kind of things can you share with our viewers on how to be able to balance both of those? Because obviously you have your company, so you got to kind of like do both,
Yeah,
unless you got it set.
now, yeah, and that has been a process of 5, 6 years now that I've been doing this. You know what I mean, independently, and actually, reached up to 50,000 streams independently. You know what I'm saying? So it's been a process of just really building it. Now, as far as the right brain, left brain thing, you got to start thinking outside of just music creatively. How do I creatively present what I'm also doing musically? That's got to be the next step. You know what I'm saying? And see what works and what don't work, man. That's what I did over the last 5 years. And finally, as I kept saying, wait a minute, what some of the people around me too were letting me know is, hey, a lot of people remember the master plan. They remember the story of the Neptunes and Teddy Riley and all of the things that you've already done. That's what you need to stay instead of just shooting out there randomly the new music. And I think that's what's different about what I'm doing now. Because that's what I really prayed for, is a vision, and I think, and a strategy. And that's what I think every business owner has to have, whether it's music, whether it's perfume, I don't care what you're selling. You need a strategy. Like, how are you going to put this product out? How are you going to market it? What is your strategy? And I think that's what I finally was able to tap into after years of just missing the point that my strategy was really me, and my history in the music industry. And then to have an album like the Master Plan that never came out, and to then have all of those, because I wrote everything, you know what I mean? To have all of that come back to me and be able to still put that out there and have people now enjoy that and use that as my marketing tool, that's the strategy I needed. So I think, because again, even with, man, the amount of music that's being put out daily is so much. You're going to need something to set you apart. What sets you apart? For me, obviously now, thank God, it's because of the years of history that I have, that now when I put stuff, they're like, oh, so I'm able to stand on that. So you got to find out, what is it that's going to make you set apart?
So when you're talking about that strategy that you had to refine, what were some tools that you used? Were there any books that you read? I mean, in terms of just really shaping it as a business, because you have a lot of practical experience, you have a pedigree, you have a musical pedigree going back to your past. So what kind of tools did you have to kind of move your vision forward? What did you use?
I'm gonna be honest, for me, it was just hard knock bumps, bro. Like, and I think that's what you have to do. You got to get out there. You can't be afraid to fail. You know what I mean? And then go back and not make those same mistakes and learn from those mistakes. So I don't think and I think that consistency is the thing I would share with the viewers or any artist that's coming up, man. Is to stay consistent and believe in what you do. Even when you look at Pharrell or anybody, Diddy, whoever, Jay, all these guys that say this, they stayed true to what they believed in. You know what I mean? And whatever that was.
What was it like seeing how your friends who you've known since you were 14 become the biggest producer, the producers? You're talking about the Neptunes, and you're also talking about Timbaland. Do you then think, man, maybe I should have gone in more production and writing and been part of that? Or what goes through your mind?
No, I think that it's all about purpose, man, and calling. You know what I mean? What are you designed to do? Who are you? You know what I mean? The Bible says that the thief of joy is comparison. You don't compare yourself to other people. You ask yourself, who are you created to be, and what are you called to do? So if it brought me joy to see that, and fulfillment to see people that fulfill their purpose and what they dreamed of doing, man. It was never that, because guess what? See, that's where people make mistakes, and I think that the world is in that state too. They just see somebody do something and think that's what that don't mean that's what you're supposed to be doing. Just because you know that person, you know what I'm saying? So what is it that God crafted and designed you to do?
So in the midst of all that time, seeing both Timbaland and the Neptunes just blowing up, you're there rooting for them. You're not like, man, did I miss my chance? You no, no.
Who wouldn't be? Why would you, unless you're a hater?
Mm.
You know, you don't watch Michael Jordan and be mad at that. You know what I'm saying? You want that person to win. And you feel good about it. Even when, you know, we got back up years later after Tammy had hooked me and Pharrell back up. It's always love. You know what I'm saying?
Now, how did that happen? What do you mean? Did she reach out to you or?
We linked back up back when he came back to Virginia to do a Shag Fest event. And we just sat and talked for like hours, like we had never not spoken for years. Because it's not just about the music, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
It gets deeper than that.
Yeah.
But like I said, even with that situation with the Hidden Figures record, because we started working together again on some gospel inspirational stuff, so that turned into a blessing for me. So I was happy about it.
So was the record on the Hidden Figures soundtrack, was it MikeEtheridge featuring Pharrell or Pharrell featuring you? Was it, what was it?
It was my record, but he was going to do a remix for a record for me that I had called It's Gonna Be All Right. I've been releasing independent music, never stopped on my own label. So he heard the record and was going to do a remix for it, but it ended up to where we allowed him to use the record for himself on a group. So that's how that ended up. But it ended up for me continuing to get paid for perpetuity.
Were you ever so were you ever part of NERD?
No. That was more of a rock thing. Never was a part of that.
Okay. The how do you keep yourself? How did you then keep yourself in the midst of that busy time at Future, where Blackstreet's blowing up? I mean, I'm sure especially after the Another Level album, are you as artists at Little Man Records thinking, oh, Queen Pin, yep, oh man, we can't wait to come out. It's gonna we're on a hot streak here. I mean, I'm thinking, what was it like being an artist at Little Man when No Diggity is #1 in the country and going 4 or 5 times platinum?
It's a great time, I mean, you definitely excited because your time is coming. But once the Interscope situation happened, we kind of knew. You just know.
That was from the Finally album. So that was on the Finally album. But you must be riding high with the Blackstreet album going double platinum, then the follow-up going almost 5 times platinum. You guys must have been like thinking, man, we can't. Well, this is good.
Oh yeah, it was like Tad was probably like Diddy at that point before Bad Boy. He was what he was doing with that whole Lil Man situation with Blackstreet and all that. It just, I think again, what he was talking about earlier with him, it was more so the left brain, right brain situation. He probably would have still had that label and everything still probably, if he could have kept his hand on everything, but he was such a genius creative musically. I just think that he didn't have the right administration there. But other than that, it would have been the same thing as any of these others. They just had more of the business acumen. You know what I mean? Because he had the same thing going on.
You think I mean, when I'm a massive Teddy fan, and I always used to, and I've always thought that being part of Blackstreet, because initially it was Blackstreet featuring Teddy, and the fact that he decided to be part of Blackstreet, I thought that had an impact on the label really picking up, because he was so busy with and being in Blackstreet that he couldn't, even though he could do some production on the road. But I think once you're part of something like that, it's hard to then start to put your focus on other things. You being there, did you think that if he wasn't a full-time member of Blackstreet, he could have focused more on creating more music for everyone?
Man, I don't know. I think he could have juggled it. You know what I mean? I think he still could have been. It's just egos getting in the way, man. You know what I'm saying? When you're dealing with certain things, egos is getting in the way, and people's being people getting in the way. So I don't think that. I think he could have did both.
Why does David Miller come out before you?
David Miller. Is it David Miller? The young
Yeah,
boy?
Yeah, the little young
yeah.
boy.
He's the one that did the video, the Hard to Handle video, before his album's supposed to come out, but it never came out. But the Hard to Handle video.
Yeah, I don't think his album came out. I think he just had the right single because we didn't have episode at that point or master plan. He just had the records. I was still working on my project. Like I didn't even have those singles that like episode or master plan. So it was just the records. Because Chad did most of my album. So Teddy hadn't even gotten to like doing my records yet. You know what I'm saying? A lot of them. He came in at the end. Me and Chad had maybe 13 records already done.
And why didn't they just release that then? If you already had the songs.
Wow, come on now. You know Teddy's not gonna release a project that doesn't have New Jack Swing signature on it as the basis of it. You know what I mean? So
But
that was the whole issue.
But the music had changed quite a bit from that whole New Jack Swing by that time. I mean, the sound during that time had changed.
It had, and that's where your problems come in. You know what I mean? Where again, it's still him holding. A lot of that was him holding on to that still. You know what I mean? But like I said, he came in later. So by the time he came in with those records, like you said, things, and then you got to remember, Interscope dropped him. Capitol picked up the record. That's 2 years later. So you had 2 years in between.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think Little Man got dropped from Interscope? Because they had two successful Blackstreet albums. Queen Pin didn't do was okay. I think she went gold. Why do you think they didn't get the support for the Finally album and got dropped?
It was more so that particular single. Jimmy didn't want Jimmy didn't want that to be the single, and somehow it came out anyway. So that became a big problem, from what I heard. And but more so than that too, man. You got to look at the structure of the album that went multi-platinum, which was Mark, Eric, Chauncey, and Teddy.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, they wanted to put Mark out of the group. And so that was the biggest mistake, in my opinion, that started the downhill spiral for them. Off of that record, like Don't Leave, that album was a classic.
Mm.
So to start busting up the group and bringing in a new singer at that point was just foolish.
Yeah, and the vibe of that record, the vibe was totally different from another level. And it kind of reminds me, because you talk about transition, since you just brought that up, it kind of like you can make that comparison to when you look at the first Guy album and you look at the Future album. The vibe of the two records are totally separate. There's a lot more rap on the Future album. When you look at the Finally album, it's the same situation. You got Beanie Siegel, you got Eve, you got a lot of different situations. So it's not like a straight ahead R&B album anymore. The vibe is totally different. There's some good spots that are there, but like you said, and when you take Mark out of that situation, now people are familiar with the group. The group has a strong identity now. You pulling your main guy out vocally, who's behind those records, and now just throws it back into chaos.
Throws it back into chaos. And then there's, the energy he brought too. You know what I mean? Me and Mark real cool. He wanted me to be in the group.
To replace
after
Mark?
That. Yes. And I didn't, I refused.
Whoa, why?
Yeah, because that's the thing about me, man. I'm not an opportunist, man. like you asked me earlier, was I ever felt like I should be, oh, because they can't, Pharrell and Chad became great producers, or Tim are friends of mine and different things. I'm not the type of person that I know my place. See, a lot of people, they just want to be anywhere as long as it's going to give them shine and they can look important. I'm confident in who I am as an artist, writer, producer, all of that. So I don't have to do that. So I knew that wasn't my place. I knew it would have been a great opportunity, some good money, but that wasn't what I was called to do. So I told him that. I said, no, you need to keep marketing. And that was kind of like how me and we had an issue with that. You know what I'm saying? From there.
And that's a busy period, because think about it. He's coming off of, Another Level drops in 96, and they're rolling into 97. They're doing the remixes. He's doing remixes, Rugrats Television. He's got Big Bob's album. He's got Queen Pen's album. He's working a lot between that 96, 97, 98 period. So do you think that, like, him being as busy, and of course he's still doing remixes and things of that nature, but do you think that he was spread like really, really thin, to where being able to focus on those projects
I think you
kind of
just
went
have to,
impacted?
no, because I think, again, I just think it's more about transitioning mentally, like, and who and what his role was in the industry. Because if you look at him having all of these great producers and all of the people who came from here that did well, at some point he could have said, okay, this is the next wave. Let me just be more of a CEO kind of
Yeah.
situation versus continuing, like you said, trying to keep that, because your time is gonna end as far as your sound and what you do production wise, unless you diversify.
You brought, you when you say that, that brings to mind like the Philadelphia, the neo soul movement, and prior to that, 70s, you had the whole Gamble and Huff situation going on, and they could have actually pivoted that to been like the overhead of the newer generations that were coming out, but they were kind of like stuck. They were kind of stuck to their sound, stuck to their identity, and they couldn't really see around the corner. Even though Teddy's still young, maybe 30 years old, but he's been in the music business for 15 years at that point. So now it's like it's a new sound.
Yep.
I remember having a conversation with some guys right around that 97, 98 time period, and they were talking about all the greatest producers and this, that, and the other. And they didn't have Teddy in the conversation at that point. Timberland is hot. Timberland is like right in the middle of doing his thing. So Teddy at that point is now starting to be associated with a previous era in music versus being a contemporary producer. It's kind of hard, man.
Exactly. And that pivot, like you said, it never happened, But still, I mean, listen, the man is still iconic for what he did. So I mean, everybody has their time, man. And again, that's why I say I'd never get into trying to say, oh, well, this should have happened, or I wish this. No, everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things you have to realize that Sheldon, Stevie, and I mean, for me, I'm his biggest fan, and anything I do, when I do any interviews for me, everything is I put everything around Teddy's music. But my favorite album is Make It Last Forever. Then the Bobby album is second favorite. Then Dangerous. I mean, so everything Teddy did, all his tracks, all his productions. There was a time that I only bought his stuff. It's strange because when the Finally album came out and the first single, Boyfriend Girlfriend, most of us as Teddy fans thought that Interscope pushed that single out because they wanted to showcase Eve and Jaru, who were Universal artists. They were both, so I thought they were I mean, we hated the song, we hated the video, and we thought, oh, they're just trying to put these rappers to promote them. It was one of the worst songs I've ever heard. The fact that became this lead single,
The worst song
really.
you ever heard.
Pardon?
You said the worst song you ever heard?
I mean, this is it had no flow, it had no even
Well,
even with that
I'll
album, I could
be
have
honest,
still had
be
your
honest with you. I would blame, no, you can't blame, it wasn't Interscope.
No, that's the thing. I thought at all this time I thought it was Interscope because of they wanted to push Eve and Jaru. I thought that was what we were thinking. That they just want to push Eve and Jaru, so they said, yeah, that's a good single to put out, and we were upset about that.
Of the creation of that project, and it was just the vibe was off. Like the whole vibe of the creative process was off. Like because again, and I think because he knew he wasn't thinking clearly, and then going through the things with Mark and all of this, the music just wasn't there, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around Mark when Blackstreet came to London, and we hung out for a couple of hours, and he just was singing continuously. I was like, man, this guy just loves to sing. He just had that. He was like a pastor who just loved to sing, and
there you go.
Yeah,
how could I love this guy?
Yeah, so and as I said, I've interviewed Eric, and Eric's probably the first person who was really open about how the whole thing went down. And he was, and even Mucho Scott, also they were very open and critical about that whole situation and that time frame, which, as I said, as a Teddy fan, was disappointing. I thought the album still had a couple of tracks that could have been. I thought your love could have been a better lead single, which was with Source Money. I thought there were other tracks that I'm sorry. I think there were other tracks that could have salvaged the album if it had, if they'd really even if they had that album as it is. I think they had some good tracks on there that could have been. I mean, you can't replace Mark because Mark had he carried that first album in such a way. But I still thought there were some singles that they could have used to salvage it. But it was very disappointing that comes out, it flops, and they just didn't even get a second chance. I thought they would at least say, okay, for what you've done in the past, we'll still give you an opportunity for them to just say, that's it, But now you've sort of cleared it up that actually, if you go against the label head and you bet that you're going to win because you've got Janet on a track and it doesn't go forward, then and especially they spent over $1.5 million on that video as well. You've taken a gamble.
And that during that time, the high profile collaborations in the videos and all that stuff, that was really, really the hot thing at the time. And then of course, when you're looking at the Janet, they're coming off maybe a year and a half prior, maybe a year prior, they're doing the Get Lonely remix, and that's well received. So it's like now it's like they're re-upping. It's a re-up with Janet Jackson, based off the energy of the previous record that they did with her, the remix, and they're on it and whatever. And there was a record that was played a lot here in the States or whatever. But like you said, a lot can change in a year. The music, the vibe, everything changes.
The sound, pretty much.
It was the sound. He could have done. I mean, we were fans. We went in the studio with you guys, but we knew that Drama was supposed to have Mary J. Blige on it. We knew that the intro to the album was supposed to have the Sesame Street theme because we were anticipating something different. The album, and even I'm not a big fan of the Take Me There. Because that type of that production just felt like it was, it did well just because I think Nickelodeon pushed the single because it was for the film. But
it becomes about money at a point too. So,
whatever. That's a big deal because them guys were MVPs at the time. You're talking about, the records up at 7 to 10 million. They're doing MTV Unplugged, and Blackstreet doesn't get a lot of credit during that time because you talk about all other groups in the 90s, but they may be the only R&B group in the 90s, aside from maybe a Boyz II Men, that ever won like Grammys.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the records they had, man. I mean, the guys were, and it's proof in the pudding that group was the one. They're still touring and they're still getting money and they're still doing their thing right now. So
yeah. So, and the reason why we bring this up is just to see, as because we've spoken to Tammy about what was like waiting for her project to come out during the whole time, having tracks produced by the Neptunes and Teddy, and it just been shelved because Teddy was putting priorities in other things. And the fact that you already had 13 tracks with Chad, and it was like, no, you have to be parked until I have time to work on your stuff. And then all of a sudden you heard the Interscope stuff fall apart. Do you start to panic when you get the news that Interscope has dropped us?
Not really, because at that point, man, I already was like ready for a change musically. I knew I needed more. I had evolved, you know what I'm saying? So I was just waiting on the next thing. And then too, it wasn't long after that it got picked up by Capitol. So it wasn't like a too long of a break, but it was a situation where I was kind of like, because I was so, me and, like I said, I was a part of it. We were like family. So me, Mark, all of us. So at that point, it was more of when that ended, it was like it was ending for all of us anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because I understood that was the face of everything. So, and again, like I said, me musically, even when I got the second deal, I was ready to move on musically anyway. So
when you say move on musically, what do you mean? Were you wanted is it that you didn't like a different type of production to the sound?
Yeah, exactly. To make things more up to date, more current, more relevant, because New Jack Swing was on a decline at that point. And that's why a lot of those records didn't work too. It wasn't just the single, it was the sound. He needed to work with other producers at that point.
I mean, Not About It had a song called Freak Out or something like that. It was like, I
remember Freak Out. I remember
that. he had the whole yellow kit like Puffy, the whole thing. As I said, the little David Miller stuff, and it was a very similar type of production. And so, for those of us who've been with Teddy since the early '80s, to see how the sound.
If you look at even not to cut you off, but if you look at even now, like Pharrell, the Timbalands, they're not making music. They're not mentioned in the top producers right now. They evolved into other things. Beat Club, Pharrell's doing the fashion, different things. His name is mentioned in different circles now. That's what Teddy never did. He never evolved. It wasn't that, like I said, I don't think it's that it was the wrong single. He didn't evolve.
Yeah.
Musically. Everybody's has a run, and you got to know when yours is over.
Yeah. I mean, even Babyface and Jimmy and Terry, they stayed within their sound. They took it to more mature artists and stayed in the lane that
Teddy and Babyface evolved. He started working with other younger producers. Yeah. He worked with them, did a record for him. Like the Neptunes did a song for him. He stayed relevant with what was changing.
Yeah, he did stuff with Bryce Wilson. He did. Yeah, he had other younger producers.
Yeah.
Another thing, these guys they also took breaks. They also took breaks between the music, and that's the thing. If you notice, Teddy was just still rolling, but remember, he's the marquee. So if you're the marquee and everything revolves around you, you're taking care of people, you got artists, and sometimes it's kind of hard to take a break or whatever because you're the main cog in the wheel. It can be very challenging, and if you don't spread the work, or you don't delegate, or you don't do whatever it is, that can really be hard. Because like if you're Barry Gordy, you can't do everything on Motown. You gotta have this. You gotta have all the different moving parts. So with you being self-contained, being able to write and produce on your own, can you describe your creative process to making music?
Well, now, and see, and that's the thing. Now it's much easier because again, you can go to direct to consumer. But my creative process now, man, is I really try to make it as real as possible. Like I try to build the music around who I am. You know what I mean? Whether it's Slater with the inspirational record or it's the Mike E side of what I'm coming with. You know what I mean? So now my creative process, I have a new producer that I work with too, that I've been working with. When I came home, like when I stopped working with the Neptunes and I went to New York, there's a guy named Aaron Washington who used to work with Rodney Jerkins. Me and him became real close. So that's who I've been working with for years, like on all my independent stuff. So now, man, it's really like, and I think too, man, the pressure's not there. When you're dealing with that pressure of label and we need a single and we got to do this, that's why I'll tell you now is a great time to be a musician. If you can really structure what you're doing and get a handle to be able to put your music out in this climate, it's because you don't have the pressure of trying to perform for a label.
And you describe like your writing. Can you describe your writing process?
Oh, my writing process, man. I've gotten to the point where now I kind of just write in my head too. Like I guess because I've been doing it so long. So like when I typically I get the beat first. And then I go from there. Melody, I establish it, and then what I want to say on the record. You know what I'm saying? Now, sometimes I may have a melody that comes into my head, and then I can sing that or put it on my dictaphone or whatever, and then, you know, give that to the producer, and then they can create the music over that. But most of the time, I'm writing to a track. I think great production is where it starts. Always been that way. I still work with like Bink. I don't know if you know Bink from Virginia too, who's a producer, but great production inspires great writing. You know what I mean? Like, when you turn that beat on, if it's something amazing, it'll wake something up in you, and everybody may hear something different. But for me, I like melody. I think melodies, most producers that work with me tell me melodies are my strength. So when I can hear a melody, then from there I go into the lyric process from there. And then the melody of the hook is what I try to establish first. Then I establish the verse melody or the B section. So
she talking about, okay, melody in your writing. Can you name maybe like 3 R&B records that had those elements or whatever that I won't say that inspires you, that you can look to? Because again, you know, the listeners, you know, we want to kind of paint a picture of what they expect from you. So can you put 3 records?
3 records that had great melodies
that you would look to as the baseline for you. Yeah.
I won't say the baseline for me, but I'm just gonna give examples so where they could be like, okay, like for me, They Don't Know, John B is a great one. You know, I'm a big man. You know, Blackstreet, of course, obviously. No Diggity's this is another one. Think about that. The hook on that's amazing. It's very simple. Let me think of another dope R&B record though, from that era. You know what I'm saying? Donnell Jones too. He's a great writer too. He's an amazing writer. And Eric Williams though too. You know, he wrote a lot of that Jaheim stuff.
Jaheim, yes, the whole vocal approach that he has, that pedestrian storytelling narrative or whatever that Jaheim does. That's the Eric Williams joint. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I love that writing style, man. For me, when it comes to R&B, when it comes to hip hop, I mean, then you got to look at Biggie is my favorite hip hop artist. And he's another great songwriter too, who wrote a lot of great songs like One More Chance and all of that. So yeah, man. I mean, now, and you know what's crazy now when you look at it, we don't really hear memorable hooks like that anymore. Everything is just like a vibe. And then you forget the song and you move on to the next one. iTunes. You know what I'm saying? Then it was like, that's why you can have a song like Master Plan that never even came out, but it still resonates with people.
And the thing about it is that people know the title. They know the title of the record.
And they remember the video was another big part of when we came up. Videos were important. Now you got to anybody can shoot a video as long as you got an iPhone.
Yeah, but it's cheaper right now too.
Well, back then it was just like if you had a video, it meant that you were doing something. Now it just means that you can be anybody with a video. You know, really put the music to it. I'm gonna tell you, music is devalued now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I'm just thankful to have a piece like Master Plan, which is more classic. And hopefully, and that's my goal, man. Even in Virginia, what I'm trying to do with the brand and G Next Life is bring artist development back. That's one thing. Like, yeah, we talked about a lot of the woes of being signed to a major back then, and getting dropped and your album not coming out and all that. But one of the great things about our time that these guys don't have is artist development, where you could sit. I mean, you say, yeah, you were there for 5 years and your album never came out, but you became great. You had vocal coaches, you had dance instructors, you had all kinds of people that poured into you and made you a better artist. You don't see that now.
Is that what you
It's just
had during those days at Little Man?
right, exactly. So, what a 16th note is and an eighth note is and a quarter note, and what, a DAT is, and how to record vocals and all these things that you learn. Now it's just the artists they're getting pumped out.
Who was your biggest inspiration or mentor during those days at Little Man? Then those when you from who would you say?
I'm gonna go with Chad, Teddy. Production wise, me and Chad spent so much time together. I learned a lot from Chad.
And he's
Chad,
older than you.
oh yeah,
Okay.
a couple years. But as far as like Chauncey was cool. Me and Chauncey he was like a big brother too, always, supportive. And even still now we talk, he was another person that I would say out of that era that was a good mentor. Mark too. Me and Mark had a good close relationship vocally, mentor as far as vocals go. But like Teddy, man, listen, Teddy was a great mentor, man. I'll give him that. And a lot of people, he gave a lot of people an opportunity, and myself included. Because you don't get to sit around for 10 years in the industry, just, with most people. And your album never came out, but you still were able to do what you needed to do. And still, that's crazy. That says a lot about who he is as a producer. So not to take nothing from him, it's just, man, I think as fans and as people that love his music and everything, we just know it could have been so much more. It was more to do,
Yeah. But were you there when Rodney was there?
Yeah, I met Rodney plenty of times. I've been to Rodney's house though, because like I said, the guy that produces my music now, he used to be under Rodney. How they used to work together.
Okay.
There's a guy named Aaron Washington out of Jersey too. But yeah, Rodney was just self-contained though. Rodney was Teddy, but just younger.
Was he your age?
So he's younger than me.
Wow.
I think. Yeah. Yeah, Rodney was just like Rodney was Rodney. You know what I'm saying? He was self-contained. He was doing his own thing. And then he had Sean and those guys writing, but his dad was like influential. I remember meeting his dad when he came down. So
yeah.
His dad was like believing what he was doing and wasn't taking no for an answer.
Yeah, I've enjoyed Rodney. I think it seems as if you learned a lot during the time with Teddy, because you said something that most artists don't do, which is getting back your masters from an album that wasn't released, and now in the process come January to re-release it. You'd be surprised how many artists don't seem to be getting looking that way. Like, it's been 30 years, laws have changed, I can get my masters back. It wasn't released, well, I'm going to re-release it. How did the thought of getting back your album and being able to put it back out, how did that whole process come about?
I mean, honestly, I don't like I said, I had just praying for a strategy, man, for like to move forward with my label. I knew, I I needed to use my past history. But I wasn't thinking about the album because I've been had the album and I had the option to do this many years ago, but it never popped in my head to say, do this. I had been, because one of the things that happened when I did the deal with Capitol, it fell under California law. So after 3 years, I could have did it.
What?
But I just never paid attention. Well, I don't want to say I never paid attention. I just never, it wasn't in my heart to do it. Like I wasn't thinking like, oh, let's just put this record out. Because so many people all over in China, this place posted it. People knew about it. But I think it just hit me like, man, you got a whole album half produced by Teddy Riley, half produced by Chad Hugo. Nobody's ever heard these records. It's been a select group of people. And at least no one's ever had, you've never had it in one place where people could access this for an extended period of time. And then you own these records back. They're yours. So it kind of just hit me like, oh, we're going to use this as a platform.
So what's the plan? So what's the plan in January? So what should fans expect come January? What are you going to do?
We're going to release the whole album. We've already been like cooking with episodes. We've got thousands of streams going on with that. It's still streaming in Japan.
So who produced Episode?
Teddy Riley produced Episode. He produced Master Plan, which that's gonna be the next single because I'm gonna re-release the video and everything, just to kind of jog people's memory again, give them some real R&B flavor, and then I'm gonna drop "Look in the Water" in February, which Pharrell wrote that, but Teddy did the music, which has a Simply Red sample in it. It's pretty dope. So that's gonna be what we do with this. And this project, like I said, man, you're gonna get to hear some things that you've never heard from Chad too. Some records that aren't even on the internet or anything. So it's gonna be pretty dope, man. And then, my artist Slater Joel's coming with new music. I got a whole new album that I've already curated. That's gonna come out right behind it. So everything with G Next Life will be like launched off of the Master Plan collection. And this will be the first time that this will be out for perpetuity, man. So it'll be cool.
So are you doing new videos or anything, or how are you marketing it and pushing it?
Oh yeah, we're gonna drop little. I'm gonna do the Master Plan video. I'm working on a Look in the Water video of how we're gonna put that together though. But I want to do something special for that in February. So yeah, definitely. We're gonna definitely have stuff out there that where people gonna know, and it's not gonna be quiet.
So are you going to perform? I'm sorry, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, because you are have you been in touch with Teddy and Chad to say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and just, I mean, I don't think you need to,
but not so much TR. We still Virginia, but Teddy just been quiet, but I mean, he gonna get his money, so he want it. If he want it.
Yeah, but what about Chad? You said Chad, you've been in touch with him recently. He knows what's going.
Yeah. So, and everybody's cool with it. Yeah.
Is he going to do some updated remixes? Are you going to get Pharrell to rap with me?
I would love to have that happen. I'm waiting on somebody to actually get back to me with that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Because me and him, we still cool. Teddy is in his own world. I haven't spoken to him. I don't know what's, what I mean, other than the internet.
Yeah, yeah.
But I see them peaking, and I see people on my page and different stuff. I mean, they know what's going on. It is what it is, man. And I think that one thing about it, me and Ted have always had like a brotherhood. And I was one of the few people from Virginia that can say, I had that longevity time with him. So it's been nothing. I try to speak well of him because he gets a bad rap a lot of times, but my experience with him was one of definitely I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah, I mean, Sheldon was asking, are you performing?
It depends, man. It had to be something crazy involved, because I really, like I said, that's why I'm calling it the Master Plan Collection, because it's more about the art of it for me living on. The fact that Chad, Hugo, Teddy Riley, joint production, that's never going to happen again in life. So for that to be out there and for something that people can access for forever, digitally. And I'm doing vinyl as well, signed copy. I think it's just going to be something great for the culture. But again, for me, as it's always been, is my vision is the future of the company and what we want to do musically going forward. So as much as I'm excited about Master Plan Collection, because that's the basis of it for people to like, oh, okay, this guy's legit. But it's new music that I'm more excited about that you guys haven't even heard yet. And Breakthrough, I don't know if you know about Breakthrough. That's Breakthrough is fire. Breakthrough's better than that to me. Breakthrough is one of my most proud accomplishments because that record broke through with nothing and got 50,000 streams. You know what I'm saying? Off of my artist Slater Joel.
So in this era now where you're at, do you see yourself? Obviously, you're releasing a lot of your back catalog with your recent catalog, but do you see yourself more as like a Quincy Jones, where you're just providing a platform for others, showcase?
Definitely, completely. Like everything I do is definitely just to set up the platform. Even the project that I'm doing, this album that I'm putting out, that I'm going to put out on myself under the Master Plan project is just for a platform, man, for others. Like I just want to be out the way and give that guidance. I'm looking for the next big person that I can get behind and say, okay, and then we can do this thing independently and get all the money. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's definitely for me, I got a passion for like artist development at this point. That's what I want to see happen. I'd love to work with somebody that's young so they can have that development and then kill it. You know what I mean? So I definitely feel that way. Like that's why this is important for me.
So what about that? What Sheldon did say is that are you not singing? Are you doing shows? Are you performing?
You said what?
Are you, Sheldon was asking about you being a performer. Are you going out and doing shows? Are you performing and singing? Whether your new stuff or your old stuff, are you doing anything?
Yeah, definitely. Once I get this new project up and running, man, yeah, you're gonna see my face, man. Next year, I plan on being, coming some places and definitely connecting with people. Definitely.
Okay, because
Yeah,
I thought
new.
you were just going to be putting out music, but being a singer and being out there singing and doing live shows that you put that to you that wasn't going to happen.
No, I'm gonna still perform now. Will I perform and go out there as the Mike E Master Plan album? I don't know. That's not probably, you know what I mean? I'm more looking toward the new stuff, you know what I'm saying? And I just for me, like I'm still creating, man, new music. You know, some of the guys might not be in that space where they're just performing the old stuff. For me, I'm steady moving forward with new music. I don't feel like I've written my best record yet.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, Mike, it's definitely been I mean, I guess the more information we can get about how people can access Master Plan Collection when it comes out.
I want people to be aware. January 4th, it's going to be on all outlets. The Master Plan Collection. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this. Some of you for a long time to actually digest it in a whole cohesive way. And I'm going to also have interludes on the vinyl, where it's going to be like storytelling of how these records came about. So that'll be another interesting piece too for collectors and things of that nature. But yeah, it's going to be out everywhere January 4th. There will be nowhere that you won't be able to look up the Master Plan Collection, hear the unheard production from Teddy Riley, Chad Hugo. Teddy's got some amazing records. That Don't Change Your Mind is going to be a good one for you guys to check out too. Like a soul version of Teddy Riley. All of the mixing and mastering on it is impeccable, done by Herb Powers. Teddy mixed every record. So yeah, it's gonna be a treat, man. And then I want you guys to embrace the new music coming behind it, and also check out Slater Joel's Breakthrough. Is out there too and doing really well.
Where are people going to be? Do you have sort of a place where they can pre-order or download? Especially you talked about vinyl, so how will they get that? What's where?
That information will be out on the 4th, actually. I'm undecided, but we're putting all that together. But that information will be out on the fourth on actually how to get it because I know they're gonna want it. So that I've got that in the works. But as far as everything else, man, just make sure you follow me on Facebook, Mike Etheridge, Michael Etheridge, and then also on Instagram, Mike Etheridge 757. All the information will be there, man. Stay tuned because in the next few weeks you'll start to see even more as we go forward with promotions and just making everybody aware, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we definitely look forward to that, especially as you mentioned some most of what we've heard from Chad has always been with Pharrell. And most of us first got exposed to Chad on the Tonight's the Night stuff.
Oh, yeah. You're gonna get to hear Chad in the element of himself and his production. There's a record called No Doubt. I can't wait to drop that. But like Chad is just dope, man. Chad is the musician of the Neptunes, always has been. Keyboardist, he's been playing since keys since he was 6. So anything, those chord progressions and all of those different stuff you hear, man, it's him. So I'm you guys are definitely gonna get to hear some of his early production. That's gonna be dope.
Yeah, I remember speaking to Levi saying how Chad would come in with a new instrument each day, like a trombone or saxophone and stuff. He just was.
Oh yeah, Chad would come in with new instruments. Chad was he's a creative guy. You know what I'm saying? He's been through a lot, but listen, the backbone of everything Neptune affiliated, Chad Hugo. Trust me. When you hear it, you know it. I mean, come on, you got to think too, that sound comes from like again a different ethnicity who broke through R&B music. So that's unheard of. We don't when in history has there been a Filipino producer that broke through in R&B music or in pop music the way Chad did? He don't really get his props because he's he's in the background, but that's who you got to get that man his flowers.
Yeah. Just finally, I mean, when you think of the fact that you grew up with Timbaland and the Neptunes, who do you think Chad, Timbaland, or Pharrell, who do you think, when you look back at from your childhood to now, who do you think has impressed you the most with how their success?
I don't say impressed because I already knew like they all were going to be successful. We all felt we all would be successful. None of us thought anything different. So I would say I don't want to say impressed, but I think that Timbaland's path as a producer, okay, will probably be the most, because I mean he just went from being in his room, when you see a guy on an Elise drum machine about that big making these same beats, but I always knew when I heard him something's different about it. And to come, yeah, so that, and then even with Pharrell, definitely, like I said, with him more so, not just the music, but everything. Because like I said, even in school, he would come to school with shorts that were cut up like crazy. Everybody be laughing and being like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? I mean, like almost like cut up to his, like where his thighs are showing and everything. And they're like, what the, you know what I mean? So what, to see the Louis Vuitton evolution and everything,
Wow.
and then what he wanted to be in them Vogue magazines. He wanted to be a part of that. So I think all of it's great, man. Chad too, and Chad just wanted to do music. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, wow.
we all actually were able to live our dreams, man. I mean, even me with being with Teddy, man, and being able to absorb that and to live that life for the time frame that I did. Listen, I have no complaints.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely it's been, and one of the things that's been really fascinating hearing you speak is, it's easy to have a guest on who could look back and think, man, if only. But listening to you, there's always only a sense of, yeah, man, we all had our paths and we've all made it. And, even your album deal with Little Man and stuff, there doesn't seem to be any bitterness or any regret. So which is really good to hear. because unfortunately, the most of our music industry stories always seem to be like, it always seems to be a sad story. But you've seen
Yeah,
this
I think,
positive
well,
side.
you gotta have a love for the music, man. And the music has to be, that's what we all started out with, the music. So, you know, if you can't see the beauty in your journey, what is there?
Mm.
And to be even still to be talked about or mentioned now is incredible at my age
Yeah,
in whatever capacity. That's crazy to me.
yeah.
When people hit me up and say, "Oh man, how can I get the vinyl or this and that?" It's amazing.
I mean, there will definitely be a lot of New Jack Swing collectors who would be really interested with the details of the fact that there's some unreleased Teddy stuff that they've never heard, or some Chad stuff that's not been heard. So, as I said, once you get the details, we'll definitely make sure we share it and make sure
Oh
people.
yeah, it'll be up, and like I said, we're gonna have everything in the next, and the pre-orders will be ready in the next week or so. So
Okay. Um, I always ask my guests that if you were sort of stuck in an elevator and had an opportunity to watch a movie while before they get you out, what would be your all-time favorite movie that you'd watch?
what's my all-time favorite movie?
Yeah.
Goodfellas.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. You know, that was probably one of the best. I mean, as much as people like The Godfather, I think it's the fact that this the way this was contained and yeah, loved it. You know, the three of them, Joe Pesci, Pacino, and Ray Liotta together and stuff.
Oh yeah, amazing. But yeah, that's what I would watch.
Okay. Also, then, what's your all-time favorite song by any artist? Your sort of your masterpiece song that you like, man. This is my favorite song.
I'm gonna go with "I Will Always Love You" by Whitney Houston.
Wow, that's the first time in 120 interviews that I've ever heard anyone bring up that one. Okay.
Yeah. That was that's a flawless record.
Wow.
Production, writing, vocals, everything.
Wow. Yeah, as I said, most people, I
Can you
mean,
name your
go ahead.
Hmm?
Can you name your maybe your favorite three male vocalists?
Oh, yeah. Joe Thomas, number one.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Man, I'm gonna have to put John P. Key in there.
Who?
Gospel singer.
Said
Okay.
who?
Yeah, but yeah, you just threw a name. I'm like, what did you just throw?
John P. Key, he's a gospel singer, but he's amazing. And then Mark Middleton would definitely be in there. I have to put Mark in there.
Yeah.
And then I gotta add one last one, Joe Stonestreet, the original Blackstreet singer.
Talk
Okay.
about him real quick. Talk about him.
Oh man. Just what else? He there would be no Blackstreet without him. He set the tone for the group. Dopest singer. If you go to my page, Facebook, I think, and you scroll down, you probably could find a video of him singing, and that's all you need to see. I don't know what else to say. That dude will burn a hole in any of them singers that ever came through that group, bro. Period. Like when he was right, if he would have been healthy and that would have worked. Oh my God. His voice. The boy made Stevie Wonder cry. Now that's a singing piece. But yeah, vocally, he was the one who he probably influenced me the most vocally when it comes to Blackstreet because I spent a lot of time with him young and he would teach me things, you know what I'm saying? But like Joe Stonestreet was who made, because if you listen to what made Blackstreet different than Boys to Men was that street, that street soul. Boys to Men was more polished and more pristine, whereas Blackstreet gave you this edge that was like church, but kind of like Aaron Hall, you know what I'm saying? That type of thing. But Street was like, he brought that to the table for real. Baby Be Mine. A matter of fact, and I'll leave you with this part on him. The song I Want to Make Love, that Dave Holliday did, the first album.
Yeah.
Street originally wrote that as a freestyle. And if you ever hear the version he did, you'll never want to hear any other version in your life. That man is sick. You hear me? I used to have a cassette of it. I popped the cassette, but that's floating around here somewhere. Street, I Want to Make Love. Whoever has that, bring it out.
Yeah, I mean Levi, even John Marie, they've all said that he was just on a different planet. Sprague as well. Well,
Yeah.
what I've always asked them.
Different planet vocally. Yeah, that's all I can say.
I mean, the sad thing is that they had to, when they realized it wasn't going to work with him in the group, they had to re-record with Dave. I think they said they might have left some of his vocals in some of the songs, but it was, yeah, as I said, what Levi and the rest have said. I mean, no disrespect to Dave, but that that Stone Street took the album to a different level.
Dave is an amazing singer, but we talk. Street is like Stevie Wonder and Charlie Wilson. Just somebody put them in a cup and mixed them together or something. That man is sick. His range and his control was just inhuman.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could hear it. I heard, like a lot of others has probably have ever heard the Baby Be Mine a cappella. And his voice sounds so good.
Oh yeah. I just wish y'all could hear that. I Want to Make Love, man. I really wish you could hear him on a ballad and hit that Wine Is Chilling Now. The wine is chilling now. When he hit that joint, boy, but he's like I said, he wrote it as a freestyle. That's his record, man.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I Want to Make Love is his song, written in the booth.
Were you there? Were you there during the Bob recording of the Bobby album? Were you there for that?
I was around then.
Was he was singing backgrounds on those albums too, right?
All of those
on that album. Because when you listen to like Getaway, there's a riff that they singing the Parliament or whatever that is, Knee Deep. That's him, right?
Something in common, all of that. If those backgrounds are just insane. That's Street.
Wow. My goodness. I mean, think about it from you're coming into Virginia and you're coming to the studio and you're seeing Bobby Brown, one of the greatest entertainers that we'd seen, coming down to Virginia, Michael Jackson. I mean, how was that?
It really wasn't. You know how you say like, wow. Back then it was wild, but it was almost like normal because, I mean, you go to any given night, you're going Heavy D, Eric Sherman, you know what I mean? This is just regular. This is what it was. Big Bub. We all just be chilling.
Yeah. I mean,
so you wouldn't like Jay-Z. I remember when Jay-Z came down and the City Is Mine album.
City Is Mine, yeah.
And he was an interesting person to sit around because he was so focused, like even back then. So it's like interesting to look back at these stories and now, or experiences, and now look at these people and say, now I see why that person, is where they are, because they had the dedication, the drive, and what made that moment for them. Why they took that moment and said, this is where I'm going. But yeah.
Were you there when Michael came down?
Yeah, once, because he was real particular, about who was around or even seeing him, the kids, because he brought the kids too.
Okay.
When he came. So they had hoods on and all that.
Okay. Did you get to meet him when he came?
Yeah, one time.
What was that like?
It wasn't no big deal.
Wow.
It was just like, hi, hey, you know what I mean? In passing kind of thing.
Okay.
because they did most of that on the bus because he did like to make sure nobody could come in there and stuff like that. So, but yeah, but Patti LaBelle.
Yeah, I heard about Patty doing All This Love and when she did her stuff. She cooked for you guys?
She was really nice. She was cooking in the studio kitchen.
Tom
So
Jones.
yeah, I mean, you gotta get for 15 years old. You gotta think growing up like that. So it became a regular thing for me
Wow.
in that to meet people and see people and Jimmy Iovine out there hanging out with them in their offices, like a lot of people, man. So now I just be thankful, like, okay, it is what it
But
is.
there's anyone that blew you away that you saw like, okay, now was there one person that you just stands out that you think back and thought this was okay? I mean, you mentioned Michael, but then there must have been somebody that
Probably Heavy D for me, I think, because I really like was always into him as a kid, like as a rapper.
yeah.
So that and I remember because we sat and hung for like a long time.
Wow.
He was like really one of those type of people who wasn't arrogant or just like down to earth. So I think for him, that probably the person sticks out in my mind a lot as meeting and hanging out with. Heavy D.
Wow. And Big Bub was part of the furniture. I mean, he's
Big Bub was there more. Big Bub lived practically, yeah, he was there all the time.
Yeah. I mean, most people forget he was on.
I never forget because Puffy too. It was because of Star Island. We had something called "How Can I Be Down," which was in Miami, and Ted had rented Cher's house, and excuse me, Gloria Estefan's house, and Puff had Cher's house. So I remember meeting them then too. But just moments like that, man, where you just were hanging out with these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, good. I mean, definitely, Mike. It's been really good just to not just to hear that, but I'm really excited to this upcoming Masterpiece collection, January 4th.
And collection, January 4th. Make sure you grab that, listen to it, spread the word, and just, get to enjoy some of the great classics that some unheard, some heard, but I'm sure you're going to get something out of this album to say, wow. It'll put you back in a place and time of real music and great production. So,
how many singles are we supposed to get? How many songs on the album?
I gotta look, but I think it's 15. It's a lot, man. It's a lot, man, because I'm putting everything on there once and for all for everybody to enjoy. It's 2 versions of "Say the Word." So the original Chad did, then Teddy did a version behind him. So you'll actually get to hear for the first time what if Teddy Riley got a hold of Chad Hugo's production. So that's kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, we definitely look forward to that. And as I said, then, and vinyl, is that going to be pre-ordered, or can you go and do a shopping?
The vinyl we're going to do pre-orders on as well. I'm actually putting that together now, the actual packaging, because I wanted it to be special, and I'm putting stuff in there too. So it's going to be like you get it's going to be a copy of the program of the talent show too that started everything.
That's nice. That's cool. That's cool.
So I wanted to have some memorabilia. It's going to be like a card from Future Records in there, one of the original cards, just to give people like that touching experience too.
Yeah. Okay.
So for forever, this could live.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I said, once we'll make sure that that first week in January, this will go out. So it will go out in conjunction with the release and definitely when the singles and stuff are out. So that'll be good.
Sounds good to me. But I appreciate you guys having me and look forward to it.
Yeah. No. It's
congratulations on everything. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for the chat. I appreciate you.
Yeah, especially in this industry, the fact that you made it out and you can see the positive sides of it. And so once you're getting ready for your your new album, your new material, later in the year, and we'll have a different conversation focused on the new music and reflect on how Masterpiece Collection has done. I
look forward to it. You guys take care. Appreciate you.
Okay. Hey, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. If you love what you watched, there's over 100 artists that we've interviewed, so please check out the videos. Remember to like, share, and unsubscribe. But better still, become a member of Halftime Chat and get exclusive videos ahead of time. But thanks for watching. Take care.